Good time, everyone. Thanks for coming. How we get on? Hopefully, I'm learning some amazing stuff from Callum, who's a pro at all podcast stuff. So, yeah.
Thank you. It's a very endearing welcome. Thanks everyone for coming. So today we're going to be covering a one-on-one on podcasting. You can think of this as like a bird's eye view of what to expect. I'll take you for an overview. We'll look at, I guess we'll start by looking at like who we are and our journey so that you can get a bit of context. Then we'll answer the question, should I actually start a podcast? Look, podcasting is not for everyone. And there are some times when it's a really good idea, and there's other times when your resources are better put somewhere else. And then let's say you are going to do a podcast. We'll go through the steps to get it off the ground, and then some tips and advice for promoting it. I'll keep that nice and brief, and then we can get to Q&A and answer the questions that come up. So one thing I will ask is if you have some questions in mind, just hold them to the end, and then we'll go through all of them at the end. How does that sound? Awesome. Ka Okay, so I am one of a two-part band at Conservation Amplified. My fiance and co-founder Anna couldn't be here today, but our mission is to make conservation mainstream. So there's so much awesome mahi and work going on in the community, and mostly people don't know about it. And we realized that by being conservationists, and we wanted to do something about it because people that are helping nature are so busy on the ground doing the work in operations mode. They don't necessarily have the time, skills, interest, or just real willingness to do the content. So we thought, let's make it happen for them. We ended up landing on doing a podcast for a number of reasons, but a big part of it was that the world's moving this way, but we can get the depth and quality that you would get in a video or a longer form story without the massive lift that goes into like a documentary or a long 10-minute video. Which means that we can ship content regularly, which has been really helpful. So I guess that's a bit of a start. And so far it's been going really well. But our view is that if we get more people aware and connected to the ecosystems, we can get them, I guess, taking more action, giving more funding, doing more volunteering, all that good kind of stuff. That's what we do. I'll keep it at that. If you want to know more, happy to chat about it later. But what we learned was that the skills we built and the processes we put in place to do a podcast for our organization are very much transferable to other nonprofits and businesses for that matter. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. What we do with ours is we interview key conservation figures in the Bay of Plenty and nationwide and soon to be overseas. And we share the best snippets of what they say. So we'll do like an hour-long podcast normally, 40 to 65 minutes. We take the best things they say and we share that on social media. We collaborate with them so that they get content. All they have to do is show up and chat and we do all the work. We get emails, all this other good stuff. So it's a really efficient way of getting content, not just for your podcast, but for all over the place. But enough about that. Let's jump into, should you start a podcast? Now, there is a good case for it. I'm going to start by sharing the benefits and why you would actually want to do a podcast. Then we can look at the challenges that you need to overcome to make sure it's actually worth your while. So first benefit is it's evergreen content. How often, do you want to raise your hand if you've done a social media post and after a couple of days it stops getting seen and it just falls into the abyss? Yeah, it's good. It gets in front of a lot of people, a lot of attention, but then our attention shifts to the next 60-second thing that's going on in our lives. I think we probably make fish look like philosophers. But podcasts are an asset that continues to be useful for long after it's been made. So we started in August 2024, and like we still get downloads and listens on our earliest podcasts in 2024 now. So you create it today, you do a whole bunch of promotion of your episode today, but it's still relevant for a long period of time. And in theory, I'd like to think that those episodes will still be listened to in 5 years' time. So what that means is that we can put the heavy lift into making a really good episode that people listen to for ages, but then we can also get that short form stuff that is bursts of attention on social media and the short attention spans. Secondly, is that it's easily bingeable. So who likes watching TV shows here? Sometimes I'll say, I'm going to watch one episode of House or of Suits or whatever the show is. And next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. and I'm like 5 episodes deep. It's the same with podcasts. If people like one of your episodes, quite often they'll go on to listen to many more. Sometimes people have stopped us and said, hey, we've listened to like 15, 20 of your episodes and I feel like they know me better than I know myself, right? So it's really good is that you can build a deep, high trust relationship with the listener. Um, which, if you think about creating content online, what you're doing is you're building this concept of a parasocial relationship. In a one-to-one relationship, you and I have a chat and we get to know each other as ourselves. When we do marketing or content creation, content sits in the middle of that. And so you'll put all this effort into creating a piece of content and people will engage with that content. And so if you have lots of long, in-depth things that people can engage with, they can listen to you or your mission or your message over a longer period of time. And by the time that you actually have a conversation with them, they know about you. They know what you do. They know what's happening. And it's just a really wholesome way of building relationships in a digital world. The third point is that podcasting taps into the filler time of people's lifestyles. So we might be cooking dinner, doing the dishes, dropping our kids off at school, at the gym, going for a walk. This is the kind of times when people often listen to podcasts. And so in the past, that would be filled typically with radio stations. And a lot of that's moving into the podcasting space. So that's a great opportunity where you can share your mission and people who are interested in what you do or stories related to your organization can actually start to build that relationship. So it's not like you're saying, hey, give up the specific time that you've already carved out with your family or that you're meant to be answering emails at work. It's actually like, you're not taking more time off someone. You're just giving them information and entertainment when they need it. Or, when they're doing other stuff. And put your hand up if you have heard a radio station recently say, listen to our podcast to go deeper on it. Yeah, radio, I don't have data on this, but I believe that radio's realized that this is where the world's going. And so they're all moving you off the broadcast onto their podcasts. So it is displacing traditional media. It is growing. There is stats primarily out of the United States showing that the compounding growth rate is quite high. I'm not going to quote it because I'll probably misquote it right now. But it's really, if you're going to build an audience, you're going to build something somewhere, you're better to go where it's already growing, because, the rising tide lifts all ships. And the other really interesting thing about podcasting is that it is a diverse and interesting audience makeup. So the typical research, which usually comes from the United States, because that's where podcasting is the biggest. New Zealand space, we've got a much smaller population, so there's not as much research. But it shows that listeners are typically younger, more educated, higher income, but that doesn't mean that that's everyone. The good thing about podcasting is it taps into your niche. The people that listen to your podcast are the people that what you're into. So it's not like you're putting an ad on TV and hoping that everyone watching the 6 o'clock news sees it. You're actually tapping into your audience. Um, so yeah, very effective way of reaching your niche. You can also build a lot of resources that are strategically valuable to your organization. So you can have, say you've made a transformation for someone or a community group or a person, you can then tell their story. Let's say there's a program that you provide and you've explained it 100 times over. Well, you can do a podcast on it. Say to someone, hey, have a 15-minute listen to this. You'll get a really good feel for what we're doing, and then let's have a conversation. It doesn't have to be a barrier or a gate, but it can just, I guess I like to think of podcasting as depth of relationship, whereas, you think about social media or advertising or these other forms of marketing as more like breadth. Yeah. And it's also easy to repurpose. As I mentioned earlier, you can make it once. You can get onto YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff, turn your short form into social media for all the different channels. You can send out emails to your existing community. You can collaborate with other people in your space to tap into their audiences they've built. And yeah, gets onto lots of channels, and it's also an effective way to get other organizations that have a lot of trust and credibility in your space to collaborate. So we started and I was actually quite surprised. Like we had interviews with the CEO of Save the Kiwi, Predator Free New Zealand, Wellington Zoo, people really high up in Department of Conservation. Just a lot of them came to us. Some we reached out to, but like if I was saying, hey, I just want to have a chat with you, I probably wouldn't have had their time. But the fact that we were creating content meant that we could then build strategic relationships from the top of the organization rather than trying to get through the gatekeepers at the at the initial contact point. So that's really useful for networking. And I also find that it's really authentic. Look, in the last few years, AI has taken over in many ways, and there's so much slop out there. It's not this, it's that. I'm sure you've seen it. It's really, it's a bit of a pain point for me. But when you talk on a podcast, you're just talking. You can choose to remove all the ums and ahs and make it extremely polished, or you can just make it yourself. And I think we're all craving a bit of authenticity, but correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Yeah. So there's a lot more benefits, but let's take a look at what you want to be ticking, the boxes you want to tick before getting started. Call it a reality check for success, if you will. Now, the vast majority of podcasts are dormant. They've started and then they've fizzled out because someone hasn't put the effort in. The results come from consistency over time. So if you're thinking of starting a podcast, I'd like you to seriously think about this first, which is, and now there is another way if you're not ready to start it, which we'll get into in a moment. But one in, so 90% of podcasts don't make it past the third episode. 99% of podcasts don't get to episode 21. So if you get to episode 21, you're in the top 1% of podcasts worldwide. So that says something. Like there is a bit of work in doing it right. So yeah. And there's also a lot of podcasts out there that are on like episode 500, but it's garbage. Like they haven't actually thought about it. They've just got on a call, had a quick chat about, their favorite type of tea, and then they've just published it without any editing, and it's not something you want to listen to. So everyone has a different opinion on this, but my view is if you're going to do a podcast, do it right. But let's say you're not in a position where you can make a podcast yourself yet. Um, if you're not quite ready to make one, there is another option, and that is being a guest on other people's podcasts. So for all these podcasts, they need to go and find guests. If they say they're going to publish fortnightly like we do, or weekly like a lot of them do, that's 26 to 52 guests every single year they need to find. Now, if you reach out to them and they're related to what you do, and you say, hey, I'd love to come on your podcast. Here's a topic. Here's a few things we can talk about. A lot of these quite significant podcasts will actually say, yeah, let's have a chat. And so that's a really good way of doing it. So I'm just going to share a bit of info about podcast guesting. Before starting the People Helping Nature podcast, which is our one, I was a guest on about 50 episodes of podcasts. I was doing it for building my business, my marketing consulting business at the time. And it was a great time. It was a lot of fun, but it gave me confidence in media training and helped me to actually present to an audience. The good thing about guesting is that podcast host has an audience, right? They've already got trusted people that they've built those relationships with from people binging their content. They do all their production. Look, I'll be honest, like we spend about 20 hours making a podcast episode, sometimes more, sometimes less, but it is a lot of work. And they're going to do it. They're going to pay their editors and their people. And at the end of the day, you get an episode that's polished for you. Now, if you then go and share that with your audience and you turn it into some social media posts for yourself, they'll usually be really grateful because most guests don't really do much to share the podcast. So that's also an option you might want to consider. Usually they would interview you and do all the promotion. And then you can take that, you can put it into tools and cut out the best things you've said and turn that into your content, your social media posts, your emails, your comms of various sorts, right? So that's an option. It's very much repeatable, and it does take a bit of skill to build, right? Like there is a bit of effort that goes into it. It's not like you just send out 3 emails and you're like the next Joe Rogan or Lex Friedman or whoever your podcast person is, right? Like there is a journey there, but it is definitely reachable quite easy. And if you think like it does compound, if you do 3 or 4 podcasts a month as a guest, by the end of 1 year, you've got 36 to 48 episodes sharing your story from people that are trusted in their niches, right? Now, I said before that podcasting is a niche thing. Like your audience is related to what you do. So if you're running an environmental charity, you're probably not going to go onto an AI tech podcast or to something about painting watercolors, right? Like you do want to find podcasts to guest on that are relevant to what you do. But it's really fun and it's good fun. I'm going to leave it at that. If you want to know more about podcast guesting, happy to share tips at the end. So feel free to ask afterwards. But let's take a look at the ways that you can actually approach podcasting, because there is no one size fits all. And I think that's the beauty of it, but it can also get overwhelming. I'm kind of dumping information on you here. Um, Happy to share the notes that I've got afterwards if that's useful for you. But what I'm hoping is that as you're listening to this, you can pull some strings of ideas and think, oh, I like that. Maybe I don't like that. And it can plant a seed that you can then consider um, that's kind of the purpose of this, right? So some types of podcasts that you might want to consider. Interview style. So we get a guest on, we ask them a bunch of questions, we have a chat, and then after the corridor is over, we edit it and we publish it and we share it. That's one type. Another type is monologue. So you might just have a message you want to share. You don't have to coordinate with guests. You don't have to hope that they don't say and 1,500 times in a 45-minute segment, right? And then you can just publish your monologue and it can be really good. And there's some really good podcasts like that. And then there's a few other types, but I like to think the others is more like highly produced. So investigative journalism, documentary style podcast, field podcasts. But those I put into another bucket because I don't really know much about them. So they're in a bucket over there. But yeah, frequency wise, you can publish when you feel like it. You might do monthly, you might do fortnightly, you might do weekly. Like I said, we do fortnightly, um, which is quite, it keeps us accountable. The risk with not having a consistent publishing schedule is that you stop holding yourself to deadlines. It's not consistent. And then the value and the growth comes from consistency over time. So then it's easy for it to fizzle out. Remember, the biggest enemy of podcasting is letting it fizzle out. So yeah, that's it. You can do audio where you just do, something that someone's listening to. You can also do video. You might do both. For us, we record an audio and video, and then we publish it as video on YouTube and then audio on like Spotify, iTunes, all the other platforms. Um, if you do video, it's important to tell your guests that. Otherwise, they might show up and go, "Oh no, I need to do my hair," which has happened a few times. But yeah, so there's a few options there. The good thing about video is that when you then turn that into social media posts and videos, you don't have to find visuals because you just take them talking, and obviously you can add stuff if you want, but it's a lot easier in that respect. It's a bit more hassle editing, but yeah, those are nuances. Um, as far as preparing for the podcast, some people will have a templated list of like 5 questions they ask, and then on the day they just ask the same 5 questions to each guest, and their audience gets used to knowing that if I tune in for 20 minutes, I'm going to hear answers from this person for the same questions. They might change one or two. What we like to do is do a whole bunch of research on our guest and send through like a couple pages of bespoke questions and do that. Team at TK keeps printing them out. Thank you. Um, and then you can also just show up and have an ad hoc chat on the day. Some people can do this really well. But most of the time, if you don't go prepared, the finished podcast isn't that good. My preference is for preparing, but there are some really good podcasts where they just have the same template of questions and it's really easy for them, which means because it's lower effort for them, they're more consistent and they can get to episode 200 or whatever it is. Um, and you also have a choice. You can do it online or in person. So far, we've done it online. With the modern software tools that we have today, it's actually really easy because you just show up on your phone or your computer. So does the guest from anywhere in the world. And then, you can edit it in that software as well. So it makes it nice and easy. Yeah, there's a few other things you can consider. But I'm just going to take a breather for a moment because that's a big dump of information and get some water. And then we'll get into the steps to getting your podcast off the ground. So, yeah, there's a few things to consider. But let's say, can I get a show of hands if you think that this is something that you might want to start a podcast at this stage? Okay, we got 5. That's great. So again, like, it might be something you want to do now, it might be something later, but let's look at what it actually takes to start your podcast now. So I'm going to assume that you're thinking, hey, I really want to start this. So firstly, make sure that you have a clearly defined audience that meets the needs of your organization. Like if you're helping homeless people, you probably don't want to do a podcast on how to bake the best blueberry muffins, right? Like it should be related to your mission because then it's actually worthwhile. And it shouldn't be, we just want to share some stuff and have a chat with our operations manager for the sake of it. Like there should actually be an intention behind everything. I like to think of a piece of content, a podcast, as an asset for your organization, not just some information that's flying around the web, which if we do it right is good. So yeah, keep the scope and the audience clear. Next up is come up with a name for your podcast. It should pretty obviously show what you're doing in a nutshell. If you don't know the name, AI tools, if you're open to using them, are really helpful for doing this, for brainstorming. Ours is the People Helping Nature podcast. And that's because we tell the stories of people that are helping nature. If I told you it's people helping nature, it's pretty obvious what it's about, right? Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can do it, but make sure the name's compelling. Also, make sure that no one's taken your name. Like, search on YouTube, search on Spotify, search on social media, and check that someone isn't already regularly making content under that exact name that you've said. I've seen people get 20 episodes in, then realize that there's an exact same podcast out there. So it's a good thing to avoid. Next thing you need is some core assets. So you'll see when you do a podcast, when you go to listen to a podcast, they'll have like a tile of like, I call it cover art. It's like a little thumbnail. So what you want to do is make a template for that. It doesn't have to be complex. You can use an app like Canva, and in that app, there's a whole bunch of templates. You can just change the colors and the fonts and stuff to your design and do that. But you do want a template so that when you publish each episode, you can then get a photo of the guests. You can put their photo on the cover art. You can put the title of the episode on it and then publish it, and it looks professional. Yeah, so that's one thing you want to do. Canva is an app that's really helpful for this, and it's free for nonprofits as well. So that's also a nice bonus. If you haven't used it, check it out. But I assume most people use it by now because it's so popular these days. The next thing is, and none of these are like you have to do this, otherwise you will not work. But these are just things that we've learned along the way. The next point is making an intro and outro, which is really useful. So we have a little jingle at the start that says who we are, what we're about in 10 seconds. And then we have like some noise and little animation at the end. Yeah, you can make it easily yourself with tools, and there's generators that do it online. If you've got someone on your team or in your community that's into that kind of stuff, they can do it. Or you can just go on Upwork or Fiverr or one of these freelance websites, and they can make it for you. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. And then the next thing is setting up your accounts. You need a place to publish your podcast, right? So, YouTube, make a YouTube channel if you don't have one already. Open an account on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Google Podcasts, whatever other channels you want to put them on. That's the next thing. It's pretty straightforward. And if you don't know, you just say, how do I open a Spotify podcasting account? And there'll be like a set of instructions. You kind of just follow your nose there. And then there's this really cool thing, and it's called an RSS feed. And so what this does is it connects all those accounts. So you can publish your podcast once on this RSS app, and then it'll push your episode out into all these different things. So when it looks like we've got an episode on like a dozen different platforms, it's actually just me uploading it to one platform, and then it just ships it out. And if I change anything, it changes it on all of them. So it means you can be everywhere without having to like have the responsibility of managing everywhere, which is quite handy. Yeah, so that's quite good. And then you just connect it up. Again, it's really straightforward. It's just step 1, 2, 3. Instructions are online. and then you're good. You're ready to start. Um, the next thing is like deciding what is the flow of your episode? Like, how does it work? So you can change this. You don't have to stick to like one approach and keep that forever. But ours, for example, we take a snippet of like the best thing the guest said in the episode, and that's the first 30 seconds to a minute, and that hooks people's attention. Then we have our templated intro jingle, which says what we're about, and then we get straight into talking to the guest. Usually we have an initial part where they introduce who they are and what they do. We have like the meat and veg of the episode, which is it's just like, what the topic's about. And then we have a few questions we ask every guest at the end, and we have an outro jingle. Um, yeah, you can choose however you want it to be. That's just how we do it. But there's lots of ways you can do it. A good way is just listen to a few podcasts you like and decide, and then adapt it as you go. The fact is that when you get to episode 5 or episode 10, you're probably going to realize things you loved about your previous ones and things that you hated, and you're probably going to change it. And I think that's natural. So, like, if you want to start, the key is just to start with what feels right now, and then just, adapt as you go. Yeah. So now you've got, like, if we zoom out and like, where are we now? We've got a name, we've got our templates and tools, and we understand how the episode's going. Now we're ready to start recording episodes. So before you launch, you should record somewhere between 4 to 8 episodes. Because when you start, if someone listens to your first episode and they love what you're doing, they're probably going to want to listen to more of your stuff. Now, if you only have one episode live when you start, they don't have anywhere to go. They're most likely going to leave, and they might not come back. So it's good to start with a few episodes to begin with, so people can, get to know you first. And usually we recommend saying, like, have a few up your sleeve so that the first month or two of content is sorted and you're not feeling the pressure to like start and launch and then record and publish your next episode next week, because that's stressful. Trust me, I tried it. It's not a good idea. So that's pretty much it. And then if you're going to be sharing this on social media and other stuff, you might want to make some promotional content for those episodes as well. Usually, if we do a podcast episode, we'll take anywhere from like 4 to 8 social media videos of like the best snippets. It's quite easy to do. Like the tools that we use, they'll actually, the tool will find the snippets, or we'll say, take that snippet. The tool will then put the transcript on it. Like, it uses AI to actually decipher what someone said, and then it puts it on the screen. It uses all that branding, and then I just go and polish it up and title it and publish it. So it's a lot easier than it sounds, but it's a good idea to have the promotion ready, because if you publish an episode of a podcast but you don't actually tell anyone it's there, chances are no one's going to listen to it, right? So making a podcast and getting it out there are two different things. But if you're already doing marketing, it can fit into what you're already doing. If you're not doing any communications for your org at the moment, it probably is going to feel like a jump from doing nothing to doing all of this. But if you're already communicating, like, a lot of the stuff is, we can replace some of what we're doing with this, and then it makes us more efficient, but we also get this more valuable content that we can share as well. Um, so then I guess after that, you've recorded the episodes, they're ready to go, and you're like, I'm feeling good, right? Next thing is, for each episode, you want a title. So the title of the episode grabs your attention. I think our latest episode was about educating kids on the ocean conservation, and it was like, why kids might be our best hope for the future of our oceans or something. That's going to hook their attention, versus Steve goes in and tells kids about whales in a classroom, right? So, it's good to do that. Design the cover art, just take the photo of the person, put the title in the cover art, write a little bit of a description to go in the podcast platforms. Again, you can keep it simple, or you can go to all levels of detail if you want. We used to put hours of work into writing the descriptions, but it wasn't doing much. So now we just keep it really simple, low effort. But I'd say when polishing the episode with the stuff, put less effort into the description and put more effort into the title, because the title is critical. It's like, when you read a news headline, like, how often do you read a news article because you saw the headline gripped your attention? Same with podcasts. So, and also, if you're going to do this stuff and you use the software that I'll share in a moment, it'll get the transcript. And so you'll have your chat with your guest. It'll then figure out what you've actually said and give you a transcript. It's not that accurate, but it's good enough to use. You can copy that and paste it into a tool like Gemini or ChatGPT. If you want to use AI, I'm not saying you have to. And then you can say, hey, give me the 20 title options and refine from there. So it's not like you have to be some creative artist every single time you show up. Like there is a lot of useful help that can be made here. Um, but yeah, then the next thing is just getting ready to launch and promote it. And then once it's up and live, then you probably want to start thinking about who are we making podcasts with next. Yeah. So I'm going to take a bit of a pulse check now. How are we feeling about this so far? Lots of ideas, lots of information, right? This stuff is, I obviously do it one step at a time. Like this would be work over a few months. So it sounds like a lot in what is 30 minutes so far, but when you do it, it's manageable if you just pick a little bit off each week. I wouldn't try and do this all in one day, obviously. And once you've got it set up, it's an asset that can continue to be valuable for your organization for the long term. So you do a big push to get it live at the start, but then you've got this really valuable resource, and that's useful for your existing people you're helping, your existing community. It's useful for other organizations in your space. It's useful for attracting new people to your community. So I would consider this less as a bunch of work I've got to do and more as an investment in how we build relationships online with people that are interested in what we do. Yeah. So a couple more tips and then we'll get into promoting your podcast. Then we'll jump into the Q&A. So, couple tips for making your podcast easily. There's an app called Riverside, and this app makes podcasting like so much easier, right? Riverside.fm. So when we record a podcast, which we use TK's rooms here, really helpful. I'm so grateful for TK, by the way, just saying to be here. It makes recording so much better than doing it in a shoebox closet and at home. A bit more professional too. But essentially, we send a link to the guest and they join on an online link. And then it's like a Zoom or a Google Meets call or like a Skype call, except on a Zoom call, when you click record, it records yourself and the guest just from your computer. What this app does is it records your video and your audio from your computer, and it does the same recording their video and audio from their computer. And then after the recording, it then uploads it and combines it in the cloud. What that means is that, like, if there's internet delays, if there's background noise, if there's other issues, it removes a lot of that. Then it has a whole lot of funky tools that can remove background noise, remove ums and ahs and pauses and fumbles, and it does a lot of this automatically. It then transcribes your episode so that then you can, like, when I edit, I'm often like deleting words from a transcript rather than going all through the waveforms. So it just makes it a lot easier to make content. And then it finds snippets and makes it into your social media clips. It's a bit of a secret weapon, really. So makes it a lot easier than it would have been 10 years ago. Yeah. And then a couple of other things like ChatGPT or other tools are really useful for making your copy, finding your titles. Canva is a really helpful tool for designing the cover artwork and promotional stuff. Another tip, we always have a pre-chat with our guests before we record. So we'll say, hey, we love what you're doing. We think this is a cool topic, but we want to get on a half an hour call with you or 20 minutes or whatever before we actually make an episode together. That does a few things. Firstly, puts faces to names so that you're not kind of doing that initial meet and greet on the recording and there's a bit of anxiety there. Like people feel comfortable when they get on the call. The way I think it is, like, think of it as we're putting all this work into making an episode. Let's make it as good as we can. It also means, like, sometimes we have an agenda for what we want to talk about. We get on a call with them and we realize that it's something way different. Like there's actually a way more interesting topic that we wouldn't have found if we hadn't have just had a chat with them first. It also means we can tell them some housekeeping stuff and we can find the time to record without going back and forth with 20 emails. Yeah, so that's useful. And the other thing I'd say is, like, when you start, you're kind of figuring a lot of the stuff out, but it's good to make templates where you can. Like we've got probably 5 to 10 email templates that we write. So all the different comms, you kind of say the same stuff to each guest. So now we just click load template, change a few links and words, and then send it off, and it just makes life so much easier. Yeah. Then as far as promoting your podcast goes, I've kind of covered most of this, but you should turn the best bits of what people say into social media posts. You can make other types of content like carousels or image posts and stuff from podcasts. If you've got an email list, if you've already got a community, you can send it out to them and say, "Hey, here's something you might be interested in." Um, if your guest is on social media, especially if they've got a big audience, you should ask them if they're happy to collaborate on a post. Like we do this on Instagram, and we can get 20 times the amount of people seeing a podcast or a piece of content because we're collaborating with a guest that's already got, 50 or 100,000 followers, which makes it a lot easier. If you've got a website, publish the episode on your website, almost like a blog. Then it's just more content that people can see without much more work. Yeah. And the other thing is just like experiment and have fun. Like there's always a new way to get stuff out there, but unless you actually try, you won't know. But yeah, that's kind of the 101 of making a podcast, right? So thanks for listening in. I know it's a lot of info to take in at first, but that's the main stuff I've got to share. So yeah.
Thanks.
If you have any questions, yes.
Once you've got your templates and all of that beginning work set up, what kind of time resource are you giving to your podcast? I know you do yours every 2 weeks, but
Yeah.
per episode, how much kind of time resource are you giving to it?
So this is you asked how much time would you put per episode once you're up and rolling?
Yeah.
It is a bit of a how long is a piece of string question, in that like you could put 3 hours or 30 hours into it. We make probably a lot more time than we should on it. But to give you a bit of a rough idea, again, this is just us, and you can obviously make it more efficient or more time consuming depending on what you want to do. But we would spend maybe one or half an hour on a pre-chat, call it an hour by the time you research them beforehand. We'd then put an hour or two into making questions, an hour or two recording. We then usually put like 6 to 8 hours into editing, maybe more, but we go really heavily into editing. Like you don't necessarily have to do that much. And then we probably spend like another 2 hours between writing the show notes, designing the cover art, uploading and publishing it, sharing it on our social media, emailing our list, doing all that stuff. Because you kind of make one bit of copy and then you repurpose it across everything you do. And then after that, we'll promote it, and that'll be just depending on how much effort we put in the episode. So maybe like for us, it's probably 15 to 20 hours making it, then 10 to 15 hours promoting it. But I know of other podcasts where they might put 8 hours total on an episode, including promotion. Um, yeah, really depends. Now, obviously, if you're already posting on social media 3 times a week and you're putting, say, 45 minutes into each social post and you're emailing your list and you're putting how much time into the email to your list and you're doing all these other things and all of that's forgotten about within a week, you can reallocate some of that time to a podcast, get similar or more in-depth stuff, and then at the end of it, like you've got this thing that lasts. So yeah.
And then for how long is
Uh Anywhere from like 40 to 70 minutes after we've edited, yeah.
and so with your content is probably more generic than something local or regional. So depending on how far the content, kind of can be shared, would you recommend reducing that to a shorter time? Like if we were talking about a local topic within Tauranga.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what you want to do. Like, if you do a shorter episode, it's gonna make less to produce it and prepare, less to edit, less to share it. But we're actually moving towards 20 to 30-minute episodes now because we found that, like, people that are diehard conservationists wanna listen for that full hour, but if this isn't your life, you're probably not going to. It really depends on the topic. Like, if it was an episode on how TK was developed from a bare site to the whole building, I probably wouldn't put 10 minutes into that. You'd probably want a bit more. If it's maybe about how kids are getting involved in using a new skate park, that's a different thing. I'm just making up examples here. I'd let the topic and the audience define that. But also, if you say at the start, we don't have the time or the interest, and we don't think our audience is interested in an hour-long podcast, we just want to do, say, 10 to 20-minute episode, then just be intentional about that. And that will guide who you talk to. Like, you'll just ask less questions, you'll share less, and maybe do it more frequently, maybe not. But there's no hard and fast rule on what you have to do, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. People helping nature. Yeah, by Conservation Amplified. You can find it on any real platform.
Balto, you don't get to do podcasts each like we could do a whole series, like a really good podcast I listened to was a really good book, and the author interviewed an expert for every chapter
Yeah.
of his own book.
Yeah, right.
And I thought it was great. It was something a limited series. Yeah, limited series. And I think for our charity work, it would be great to have a limited series.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the good thing is like you can make it exactly. Like there was a guy, Jim James, I went on his podcast and he explained to me he would do 50 podcast episodes and ask the same questions each time. So it was really efficient for him. And then he would turn that into a book and then get that book published on bookshelves. So, there's no one right way of doing it. That's a great idea. So you say, well, I'm making a book. I'll use this podcast as my research and then publish something else. Yeah. So yes. Free. Yeah. So it's in US dollars. I think it's 24. We pay about 50 New Zealand dollars a month for our Riverside. And then the RSS subscription, it's like 10 or 20 bucks a month. Yeah.
And other than that, for hardware, are you just using laptop and the mic or what are you using?
Yeah. So we have some entry level, probably more entry level, but like something like that. And it's about maybe $150 a microphone delivered. It's called Samsung Q2U. It's like good quality, but not the highest end. And that just plugs into our laptop with a USB, and we just have a webcam. Yeah, that's basically what we do. Sometimes, if it's loud outside, we'll put Bluetooth headphones in just to cancel the background noise. But yeah,
And because of that software that you've got, where it's basically like a Teams call or a Zoom
yeah,
call, you're not having like big fancy studio setups like with probably the early days of podcasting.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, and I think it makes it a bit more comfortable as well. Like we put a lot of effort into making guests feel comfortable. We say like if you say something, just repeat it, we'll delete it. If you don't like something after we've recorded, just tell us and we'll delete it. Like, yeah, just make you feel at home, right? And so, like for a lot of our guests, the vast majority of our guests have never been on a podcast before. But doing this online recording means that you can still make them sound really, really polished and professional without them necessarily having media training. Yeah, so it's quite good in that respect.
Uh, sorry, that's not a question. Would you say that you need a lot of skill for the editing, or is that software
No,
kind
it's
of
easy.
yeah?
Yeah, it's easy. As with anything, there's a bit of skill and you pick it up as you go. The editing software is not perfect. Like if you delete this word, it might cut half of the next word off, but then you just kind of drag the slider and then listen over to see how your cut is. Um, but honestly, put a few hours into it and you'll get to know it pretty easy.
So you're putting more the text rather than like
Yeah, so you have a like you can see the video. You can like I'm gonna do this on the camera. Like you've got like the video feed here, right? And you got a transcript here, and then you got like the waveform, like the audio stuff down here. And then you can split that out and you can see like your audio feed and the guest's audio feed and where it's muted for each. And then I'll be watching it. And if I see that there's something on the transcript I don't like, I'll delete that and it'll delete it off like the waveform. But then sometimes it's not perfect. So you might just drag the sliders, but it's not like you need to have a full mixing box and all this training and stuff like, and just listen to it at the end. And if you're like, oh, that cut was a bit rough, just go back and slide it until you're happy with it. Yeah, it's honestly the software makes it so much easier. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also, like, you can hire people to do the help. Um, there's a lot of local audio, video, podcast editors, but also, um, like you can get a virtual assistant overseas for quite cheap to do it. Um, yeah, like local editors, yeah, you're looking at about $400 an episode to edit. If you get a virtual assistant from like the Philippines or India, it's maybe like $100 an episode. So there's still a cost to it. Um, but yeah, it depends if you want to do it. But yeah, obviously I prefer to hire a local editor, but I'm just saying it is an option, right? Yeah. But yeah, so I know that you might have come to this thinking we're going to launch a podcast and might be thinking now, I don't know. And if that's, and maybe none of you are thinking that, but I know that this is certainly like when you get into it, there is a bit of work involved with it. And that might even be the best outcome is to say, maybe now's not the right time. You might want to be a guest on other people's podcasts as well. And then they do all that heavy lifting and you get an episode. Or you might go, okay, actually, this isn't for me. I don't know. How do you guys feel after you've been through this? Like, do you feel like this is something that you would want to do? Or do you feel like it's something that you're like, I'm not sure about now?
Um, but I made a big another
Yeah.
right bigger this example
Yeah.
of that lots of serious idea. I feel that for most nonprofits that I know, it's too much of a resource for any one organization to do. But as a shared resource,
Yeah.
something that we can do a series of under an umbrella, if I'm doing you an umbrella, if it's a signature,
Yeah.
then it's something that like that they could be guests
Yeah.
of. But yeah, I mean, who ends up being else will be responsible for that is really the question.
Yeah.
Resources.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we need a sponsor.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important to go into it with eyes open if you do. Um, if you do it, like the worst thing you want to do is treat it as a big distraction. But a limited series is also a great idea because people do continue to listen to it, right?
Yeah. Actually, on that, maybe a cheeky question, but do you have a sponsor for your podcast, or is that something that just kind of?
So far, our own back pockets have been our sponsor.
Yeah.
We are applying for funding, and we're also talking to a few different avenues and channels. For us, we just said, look, this is too important not to share the stories, so we'll pay for it now and figure it out as we go. Yeah.
I know there's some funding grant around technology. I can't think of what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few out. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
No worries. My pleasure. Oh, cool. Thank you. Let me stop that video.